Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic This Week and WordPress and SaaS. This is episode 717. We've got a great guest, a friend of the show as well. We've got Mark Westguard. He is the founder, and I must get this right, of WS Forms.
That's it.
Because I have an unbelievable need to call it something else, which Mark has pointed out to me. I have controlled myself, tribe. But it should be a great show, a great interview. I'm going to let Mark quickly give us a 10:26 introduction. Mark, can you introduce yourself to the tribe?
Sure, yeah. Mark Westguard, founder of WS Form, a WordPress plugin for building forms.
And I've got my co-host, Andrew Palmer, the man that knows how to get me into some severe trouble. So, Andrew, can you introduce yourself to the tribe?
My name's Andrew Palmer, and I'm from Bertha.ai, of which Mark Westguard recently became a contributor because of his coding skills. So there you go.
All right, that's great. Before we go into this great interview, we've got a couple of messages from my major sponsors. We'll be back in a few moments. We're coming back. I'd like to point out I've got some great special offers from the sponsors, plus other great offers, recommendations on WordPress plugins and services. You can get all these goodies by going over to WP-Tonic/recommendations, and you find them all there. So let's go straight into it. So, Mark, how did you get into the kind of, I call it the semi-crazy world of development? And then specifically, how did you get into the even more crazy world, in my opinion, of WordPress?
Well, that's a long story. I've been coding since I was about 4 or 5 years old. So, you know, I'm the classic British kid that was given a Spectrum by their father and learned and coded that way. So I went through college and university and studied in computing, and then started my first agency on the last year of my degree in 1996, and started an agency called Absolute Internet. We were the UK's second fastest growing agency at the time.
That is early, because I decided to do a mature degree at I started at 1996, so it's pretty early days, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's when Netscape 1 was around. So we were lucky to have tables back then, let alone anything else. And so we used to build websites for all manner of companies like Safeway, Sony, SAP, Filofax, all kinds of different companies. And have really had an agency ever since then. I moved to the States in 2005 and met a New Orleans girl who Andrew has met. And then I got into the licensing game with software probably about 9 years ago. And that kind of evolved then into the plugin arena. But I've been using WordPress for about 10 years with my team there. So we used to use WordPress for building our client websites, and we would build from ground up. We'd always build custom themes, literally from HTML to /HTML. Didn't really use any off-the-shelf themes. So it was all custom stuff for the clients that we work with. And just been hammering on with WordPress ever since. I've followed its development. I'm not, a veteran like some people. Some people have been using WordPress for much longer than that. It was really my development team that introduced me to WordPress all those years ago, and then they started going to WordCamps and things, and that's where we are now. So,
just a quick follow-through question. So it was your team because of what you said about your UK experience. I got the impression from your LinkedIn bio and that you've worked with some of the largest corporate entities in the world. And my impression is that, why I'm asking you this question, they're not absolutely that positive about open source software. But I'm not sure if I'm right. So to recap, it was your team that kind of influenced you into into WordPress?
Yeah, I think, back in the day when we were doing stuff for Sony and people like that, a lot of that was custom written because content management systems didn't exist. We actually wrote a content management system called ADS, and we sold that to a bunch of big corporates that needed that type of functionality. So WordPress actually was on the scene after we were developing those content management systems. And a thing that I guess that attracted us to WordPress was just the scalability of it, the support network around it, the community, the ability to extend it with plugins and things like that. And obviously that's getting better and better every day. So it was a migration for us, but the problem we had with writing our own content management system was just the immense work it took to maintain it. So by jumping into the WordPress sphere, you've got a pre-made product there that clients found pretty easy to update and maintain. So that's kind of why we made the transition over to it.
Over to you.
Sorry, John. Go ahead.
No, it's all right. So over to you, Andrew. Well, you're muted, Andrew.
Andrew's muted.
Whoops. I'd like to. Well, I'm a bit like a robot today. I'm just doing what I'm told. So what's been the most successful way that you found to market WS Forms, and what makes the WordPress market a bit different from the previous market that you were in?
Yeah, so I'll tell you the previous market I was in, funnily enough, was the wedding market, and we built a wedding planning and wedding website platform, which originally we wanted to go direct to consumer with, but quickly found that the bridal market was saturated. I mean, it's just trying to get a bride to use your product was nigh on impossible. So we white labeled it, and we went to Condenast out of New York and white labeled it and licensed it to them, and that's the best thing we ever did. So, and it's kind of similar in the WordPress space. What I found is that the WordPress space is fragmented into lots and lots and lots of different communities, sub-communities of enthusiasts that like certain products. So it might be learning management systems, it might be Elementor, it might be Divi, it might be WooCommerce. And each of these kind of has a circle of friends in it that talk about it and are trusted and respected. And what I found, and if I'm looking back now, this would be some advice I would give a plugin developer, is get involved in that community early on. Don't rely on Google AdWords and Facebook ads and things like that to promote a product in the WordPress space. For me, it didn't work. What worked for me and what I actually enjoy more is being part of that community and being involved in the community and helping people out. I'll go on to various Facebook groups on a daily basis and just answer people's questions, not about forms, just about anything. And just help them out. And you'll slowly pick up relationships and friendships that become very, very worthwhile. I met Andrew years ago. Andrew was one of our very, very early advocates in WS Form. We had a little chat about it. I showed him it. He liked it. We did a little webinar on it. And you've got to do a lot of that. You've got to build a lot of content online. It takes a lot of time to do it, but as people start to use your product, Andrew's actually a user of my product. He actually uses it on his own websites, and having those recommendations for people just worth their weight in gold. So yeah, that's that. Traditionally with my old business, I would go out, find business, build a website, and then go out and build another website, find another customer, build a website. It was just a continual cycle. But with WordPress plugins, it's very much a community-driven marketing effort that you've got to focus on.
I agree. Jonathan.
Oh, thanks. Just got a quick follow-through question on that. So do you think the WordPress, obviously it's open source and there's other open source, Joomla, Drupal, other open source, but do you think that the WordPress community, I use that very loosely, do you think it's quite unique in the software area because of the amount of users and the fragmentation that you started off with your reply?
If you look at other platforms that are out there that aren't necessarily content management, but ones like Salesforce and other big corporations like that. There's definitely not that same community feel there. I think with WordPress, there's a lot of free content out there that people can get their hands on, and I think that has influenced the community quite a bit as well. There's a lot of good free. I mean, we have a light version of our plugin, so if you want to build a basic contact us form and everything else, then you've got that. And I think as a result of that, you then rely on a community more to get help. Whereas a paid-for product that isn't open source, then typically you're paying for that support. So, I think it's very different from other platforms that are out there. WordPress just has this immense following that you won't find anywhere else. It's huge, and I think in a way that's good because you've got so many developers and so many people working on it. On the flip side, it's difficult to get your message out there as a plugin developer because there are so many different channels out there. There's no kind of one main place that you can go to say, hey, here I am. And the community doesn't like it if you just pop into a group and say, hey, here's my product. That's not the way to do it. The way to do it is to go out there, talk to these people that are influencers, get them interested in your product. Obviously, you've got to have a good product in order to be able to do that. But once they start latching on and other people start seeing it, then you start to see that kind of snowball. Patience is key in this game, for sure. It's taken me several years to get to where we are, for sure. It's been even more difficult because, we're not a plugin that's been around for 10, 15 years like some of my competitors. So,
my next question, but in some ways you covered it in your reply of the previous question, is that, and I just want to see if you agree with this, is that, you've been successful and the different ways you have marketed, I think you've covered that by building up more relationships. What your plugin, it seems very powerful, very feature rich, really focus at the developer, and obviously the elephant in the room is that particular market is dominated by gravity forms. And a lot of people, and I'm one of them, is grandfathered in to a gravity form license, and I get it at a very large discount. And it keeps me renewing it, even though we tend to use other plugins that are maybe a bit more friendlier for the end user who isn't a developer. How has this been something that you've talked about, and have you found methodologies, ways to overcome that, or don't you? Is it it's such a big market, new developers entering, that you're just not bothered by it?
Yeah, I mean, we're not in the game to convert Gravity Forms customers over to our product. There's, like you said, it's such a huge. I mean, the WordPress powers 45% of the internet. There are plenty of new customers out there to be had. I've met the team at Gravity. They're great people, and I've had chats with them at events. We're like, this place is big enough for both of us. and I've met the developers of Fluent Forms and Ninja Forms and Formidable Forms and WP Forms. They're all great people, and they're all community driven. And we've never really had any kind of animosity between ourselves. It's just been a case of, let's just get on with it, and let's keep pushing this sector of WordPress forward. So really what I've done, the niche that I've been trying to address, and the reason that we developed WS Form is that we were a developer house. And we found some frustrations with the way other form plugins were doing certain things, such as responsive forms, such as integration, such as the number of different plugins you had to install to get a plugin to do what you wanted it to do. And also, we're really focused on being a kind of a no-code solution. So you can build pretty much anything you want, just drag and drop and a few configuration settings, rather than having to write some PHP code to make it happen. So we've got repeaters that work. We've got bi-directional integrations. We've got deep integration with ACF, Metabox, Toolset, and Pods for creating and editing posts. So that's kind of the niche that we've been focused on, and those are the kind of the key things that we find our users like. I've just been working with a developer this morning, in fact, and he wrote me a message on Facebook and said, I just clicked on HubSpot, clicked add new, and it pulled my form down from HubSpot and built me a form. Wow, you just saved me 3 hours of work. And I'm like, yeah, well, yeah, the product just paid for itself. And that's really kind of where we focus as a
yeah. There's been some things about HubSpot in the Facebook groups and stuff like that, and you don't use APIs, or HubSpot have cancelled some APIs to other forms or whatever to make it more difficult. And I assume, because I don't want to get litigated against, but I assume that's to force people to use HubSpot forms rather than anything else. I don't know. I'm just making an assumption there.
It may well be that
you use a different way of connecting, like OAuth and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. It may well be that HubSpot just wanted to stop using API keys and use OAuth just because it's a better way of connecting. It's more secure. And we try to use. So just in case your viewers don't know what OAuth is, so OAuth is when you connect to a third-party service, you click connect, it'll go to that service, such as HubSpot. You'll log in, and then a page will come up saying, do you trust WS Form to connect to this or whatever service you're using? And you just hit connect, and that's it. So all the handshaking goes on behind the scenes. There's no manual key entry. And what happened with HubSpot is that they announced that they were going to stop using API keys and focus on the OAuth side of things. And unfortunately, that has broken some third-party form plugins because they rely on API keys. So we were fortunate that, I guess we developed our integration much later than they did, so we focused on the OAuth side of things, and so we've had some people be able to use our plugin instead. But we always go a little bit further with our integrations in that we have one-click templates. So if you're using MailChimp, for example, you go add new, go to MailChimp, choose one of your lists, click on the template, and it actually builds a form for you. So all the MailChimp fields are there, the custom fields are there, all the bi-directional mapping is done. It's literally one click and it's ready out of the box. So other plugins, you have to put all the fields on the form that you want and then manually map all that across, test it and everything else. But ours does that out of the box. So
amazing.
Right, that's fantastic. We're going to go for our break, folks. We'll be back in a few moments and we'll continue this great conversation. We'll be back soon. Is it me, or because you were breaking up a bit, your internet? Was it fine for you and Andrew?
Yeah, my side's fine. Yeah, I'm not getting any break.
Yeah, the voice was fine, so it's fine for the podcast.
Okay.
Right, because I think it's my side. That's why I was checking. I think it could be my side. Right, let's go back into it. 1, 2, 3. We're coming back, folks. It's been a great conversation with Mark and WS Forms. I'm getting myself trained, tribe. I am a walking, talking mess, and Andrew likes to point that out. Yeah, I'm a donkey, as he says. I'm not going to go the other part of my catchphrase there. So let's go straight back into this great interview. Like we talked about in the first half of the show, Mark, you are a very experienced developer agency owner, and you have worked with a very long list of Fortune 5 companies. Pretty broad question, and I'm going to try and keep myself tight. Have you got any practical advice to anybody, anything you can share, any insight about developers that want to attract some of these higher corporate clients, or should they not bother based on your experience?
Yeah, I guess it depends if it's corporate or government. The government stuff is really difficult to get into, and be very, very careful doing that stuff. It's usually an RFP process, and they've already made their mind up. But but on the corporate side, the way that I got into a lot of these corporates was by doing a small job for them for free. Honestly, it was, you've got some of these huge companies, but at the end of the day, they employ, maybe they employ 20, 30,000 people, but there's one guy in that company who's responsible for a bit of web development, and they often need a bit of help. I think one of the key things is not to scare these people, talk on their level, listen to what they're into, don't try and scare them with new technology and stuff. A lot of these, even the marketing departments or the IT departments are pretty set in their ways, and you want to work within their parameters when you're, doing work with them. It really depends on if you're responding to an RFP from them or if you're going to them and touting for business. One of the companies I work with, they're a hair care company in the States, huge company, and I literally did a $400 job for them just to try and get in the door, and I've done hundreds of thousands of dollars with them ever since, just by doing one job properly. So I think it's difficult as an independent developer, as a freelancer, to have those development skills, but also have those people skills, those sales skills, to be able to go into a business and sell yourself. But I think it's a careful.
Well, that's one of the things. It's one of the things I admire about you, Mark, because I haven't known you as long as Andrew, but I observed that you've got excellent people skills, but also by your resume and what I found out, you're obviously a very experienced developer, and that's unusual skill mixture that I've observed in a couple other people, but not many. Is that something that's been said to you before?
It has, and I think really that just comes from having run a business from a very young age. I never really was an employee. I started business young, and I had to do everything. So you become, overnight, you become a salesperson, an accountant, an HR person, and everything. And as your business grows, you can obviously employ people to do those things. But starting your own business is really challenging. It's a lot to worry about, a lot of things to think about.
So many hats to wear, and I think what I'd like to emphasise, knowing me and all that, I know you quite well. Managed to stay at your place for a little while as well, and we're still friends, which is pretty cool.
Beer and wine helps.
Yeah, quite. I think the key that you're saying is for any business. It doesn't matter whether you're approaching a corporate or whether you're approaching an individual with a tight budget. I think what it is if you approach the person who is the decision maker, whether they're corporate or whatever, with empathy, kindness, willingness to help, all that kind of stuff, generally it kind of works out, and they'll start paying you a decent rate of pay. That's what my feelings are.
Yeah, and it's funny, when I was at university, I did a year out with a company called Sequent, who got bought out by IBM. They invented all the quad processor boards back then. Really cool company to work for. But they used to have these, they had sayings on the wall that, were the ethos of the company. And one of them that's always stuck with me was easy to do business with. And if you're easy to do business with, people will come back time and time again. And there's nothing more powerful than repeat business. I probably haven't acquired a new customer on my agency side for, 3-4 years. And that's just because once you build that relationship with people, they'll come back for more, and they'll ask you if you can do other things, not just stuff you did on that first project. Mark, can you do this? Yeah, I can do that. And we'll build that for them, or we'll learn how to do it. So I think, be a nice person, have a good relationship with these people. You tend to build friendships with these people over the years, and that's really valuable. And they'll come to you before they go to anybody else. So you don't have to be a complete, business tout to make it in business. Just be a nice person.
Oh, well, that excludes me then. So let's go on to the next question. Let's go on to the next question then. Look, everybody makes mistakes, and we tend to learn from them. What have been some of the biggest lessons that you have learned from your mistakes?
I think it's, on the WS Form side, probably on the marketing side, was just putting too much emphasis on paid marketing. Just didn't work for us. Didn't really understand the space properly in the early days. And if and when I build a second plugin, that approach will be done very, very differently to what we did. So the WordPress community doesn't tend to respond well to ads thrown in their face. As is evident with the WordPress admin, with people hating ads popping up everywhere. We keep our ads within WS Form to say, hey, you haven't put your license key in or whatever, but we don't take over half the dashboard to say, hey, try our product. It just doesn't work. So I think, next time we do that, we'll focus more on community than we will any kind of paid advertising. I think also more and more bug testing, really. When we launched WS Form, there were things that if I look back, we would have done a lot more testing on, like the integration side of things and things like that before we went live. But on the flip side, we didn't get any pissed off customers, and it was quite nice having other guinea pigs helping us out with it. We didn't launch a product that was inferior, but maybe if we'd spent a little bit more time, we would have reduced the number of support tickets we had on certain things.
I agree with that as well. Or you have a coder that lives in Alabama that you can call upon and say, what's wrong with it? You go, oh,
yeah,
okay then.
Just as a quick observation, I think what you were saying about paid advertising, I personally see it as gasoline on the fire, really. I really think you've got to get the business model really tight, and you've got to get your marketing message, and you really got to get...
the difference between paid advertising with, say, Google or Facebook, where you're trying to reach a certain type of customer, which is difficult in the WordPress space, compared to, maybe paying someone to write a blog, or going to a company such as WP-Tonic and doing some marketing through you guys. You've got that WordPress captive audience already. So if you're going to spend any marketing dollars, I'll always do it with a company that already has a captive WordPress audience.
Sponsoring WordCamps, for instance, which you do as well.
Yeah. So like Porto, we've sponsored several WordCamps. The most recent one was Porto. We did a special offer for Porto.
Well, can I just my own observation of that? Each WordCamp is a kind of micro event in its own world. Some WordCamps have a good buzz and well organised. Others are a bit of a lost ship, really. They vary quite a lot in their feeling and their buzz. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think there's definitely been different responses that we've had from different events. I mean, we did the first one we ever did was in Dallas-Fort Worth, and very, very small, but we got such value from it. I mean, the people we met were just great. And then we've done like WordCamp US and not made a sale, and then we did Porto, and with that one, we backed it up with a special offer. And I think by doing a really good special offer, we changed the dynamic of our sales in terms of, usually with a form plugin, you're not going to buy it till you need it, right? So I'm building a site. I need to build a form. I need to find the right form for the solution. You go out, look around, pick one and buy it. When you do a really, really strong special offer or something, it almost becomes an impulse buy. And that's what we found with Porto. So we did a really special offer, did a bunch of demos. We managed to get people to buy it on the spot, which was great. And we met some really cool agencies, developers there who loved the product. And Porto went really well for us. I thought Porto was incredibly well put together. It was
considering what they were facing. They did get some, I thought, very unfair criticism myself. I thought it was extremely unfair, some of the criticism.
There's always going to be critics.
Well, sometimes criticism is justified, and you've got to take it on. You've got to take it on.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just outlandish, and I thought some of the criticism, it wasn't perfect.
Mm-hmm.
There were mistakes made on reflection, but people got to take into account that it was a major and a very large event, and there'd been a substantial gap and people tend to criticize without taking in the other factors. It's just easier to criticize.
Yeah. I mean, everything was put together. It was, brilliantly put together. I thought it was amazing. The people that went there, I met. I mean, as a plugin developer, if you want to meet the voices of WordPress, that's an event to go to. And interestingly, I'm a member of Post Status as well, and I did something on their group, and we spoke about, should we sponsor WordCamp US as well? And someone said, well, you know what? You've just done WordCamp EU. You pretty much met everybody that's going to go to WordCamp US anyway. It's the same sponsors. A lot of the same key people are there. I'm going to WordCamp US, but I'm just going to go as an attendee. And
we have to meet up for coffee. I'll send you an invite, and I'll buy you a coffee and a pastry. There we go. We need to wrap up the podcast part of the show, folks. But we will be continuing the discussion. I've got some other questions. You can watch the whole interview, the podcast, plus the bonus content on the WP-Tonic YouTube channel. Please go over there. So, Mark, what's the best way for people to find out more about you, what you're up to, and WS Forms?
If you want to learn about WS Form, just go to wsform.com. I think it's right there. If you want to find us on Twitter, we're WS_form. And if you want to find me on Twitter, I'm just Westguard, WESTGUARD.
Yes, and Mark has agreed to sponsor the show. It's much appreciated, Mark. I will be doing my best to promote. I actually think you've got a great form product, and I'll be doing my best to try and promote it.
Thank you.
Andrew, what is the best way for people to find out more about you and what you're up to?
You can find me on Twitter at Arnie Palmer, Bertha at BerthaAI_, or Bertha.ai.
That's right. That's fantastic. We'll see you next week with another great guest. We have some fantastic guests like Mark coming up. I think you're going to be surprised at some of the people that have agreed to come on the show. We'll see you next week, folks. Bye.
See ya.
On to bonus content. So,
I want to ask this question.
Pardon?
I want to ask this question.
Yes, go on. Sorry, go on. Off you go.
Blimey, sitting here like a spare whatever at a wedding.
He's always complaining, Mark.
I know.
But Mark, the reason I want to ask this is because I'm going to precursor it. So be very careful how you answer this.
Okay.
So, what or who are some of your biggest heroes and why?
Oh God. Oh, Andrew Palmer and Jonathan Denwood. I mean,
see, right answer.
Who else? Who else could
I? No, but seriously, who have been some of the people that have really influenced you the most, really business-wise? Let's just focus on business.
A lot of people that I've worked with over the years. A lot of my business partners that I've worked with, I used to work with John Broome, who used to own Alton Towers in the UK.
Wow.
Very, very successful businessman. And he and his son, I used to work with them out of London. Learned a lot from them. My wife's grandfather, when I moved to the States, is a very, very successful businessman. Taught me a lot. The staff that I've worked with, I've learned a lot from them. I'm not, up above myself that I won't listen to anybody. I listen to my staff. I listen to what they want to say, and if they want to critique what I'm doing or recommend some new product, then I'll listen to it. They've been very influential in the stuff that I've done. Customers from WS Form have just been fantastic. I mean, our product roadmap is steered by our customers. I listen to them. I listen to ideas that they've come back with. There's been a few key things that have just taken WS Form from here to here just by listening to what a customer has said.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot of respect for them. And then people in the WordPress space, everybody from you guys to, Corey Miller, Michelle Frechette, a lot of the big names out there that we hear about, who are all genuinely wonderful people. They're just great people to know and to work with. It's rare to come across a community where you've got so many genuinely nice people. And when we do get together at these events, we have fun. We sit down, have a chat, or we go out, have a beer and a burger or whatever. And it's great fun. So, I could list hundreds of people in the WordPress space that I've met, but we haven't got enough time. So.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because we are a friendly lot generally.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few people out there that are a little bit standoffish and everything, but once you get to know them, my favourites in this space are the Beaver Builder guys.
Mm-hmm.
They're just they're like hippies. I love them. So we got. I've got my Jesus boots on at the moment. It's just dealing with Roby and crew has just been an utter pleasure. And you've got, the GoDaddy lot there, Adam and all that lot from GoDaddy.
Love Adam.
Really friendly, really open to constructive criticism or comments or whatever. And back into the world. Really, it's great.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, Andrew, but when it comes to GoDaddy, that's a slight bridge too far for me, because GoDaddy they've got some fantastic people that work for them
and products.
I think some of the products which they have brought in are excellent. I feel that the reason why I'm responding to you, Andrew, is the corporate culture at GoDaddy, being that it's such an enormous company in hosting terms and internet terms. The corporate culture, I feel, it's like a super tanker to really move it into a slightly different direction. And it has the residue of a culture that, in my opinion, was quite toxic.
I don't disagree with you at all on that. But what we must allow companies to do as well as people is have a different approach. If they've got some toxicity in their background, or they weren't particularly well behaved in their arena, doesn't matter whether it's WordPress or any other business, then I think you have to give people an opportunity to embrace change. And I think that's what's happening at GoDaddy. They're definitely embracing change.
My response to that, Andrew, is, I'm sorry, Mark, because obviously we should be talking, but hopefully you're not too peeved. My response to that, Andrew, is that the problem with that, and I do agree with you partially, obviously, but the problem when it comes to GoDaddy is that there's been multiple attempts at this. They have over 2 to 3 different clear periods try and engross themselves in the WordPress community, and have tried, sincerely or not sincerely, who knows? I have no inside information, but they've had people that are very respected, great people, and then they have left. They've brought in a new crew. They've reattempted to regurgitate themselves a bit, in my opinion. And it hasn't really worked out. And the reason why I feel it hasn't worked out is that we're dealing with this super tanker. And WordPress is very important to GoDaddy, but it's still just a micro market to some extent to this enormous super tanker. I don't know, I think it's a $3 to $4 billion company last year. So it's
change takes time, and I think we should move on from the GoDaddy thing. But Mark, with your programming skills, I've seen you program, right? We've shared the screen, and I've sat with you as well in your lovely place and seen you doing code. Is it like because you just write code off the top of your head? There's no copying or pasting. You've got the syntax in your head. How do you think that was a natural ability that you've got with a language, or do you think it's do you speak any other languages other than code? That's what I'm trying to say. And how does your brain?
Yeah, many languages. I think. I guess all developers have a tool set of languages that they use. yeah, I mean, you know, HTML, JavaScript, PHP. I've written books in C coding. I've written numerous different magazine articles on different languages, and gone from, you know, C to ASP, ASPX, PHP, and, you know, all these different languages. Yeah, exactly. Good luck with that.
That's what I got into it through Flash action scripting,
Yeah,
and then I did a bit of Microsoft stuff. God help me. When I was coding, I don't actively code now.
Yeah, I do a little bit of ActionScript stuff to this, or Visual Basic stuff to this day for a hospital that I work with, and it's always a horror show getting into that. It's funny though, we're doing some work with Visual Basic and Authorized.net, and they have a Visual Basic library, but they have no documentation for it.
It's really it's what are your thoughts about modern Microsoft focused web development? They seem to really were trying to push .NET, and then it kind of foundered. And I listened to a couple of I listened to This Week in Microsoft. I think it's Microsoft. And it looks like they're trying to, well, it seems a bit of a mess in the Microsoft world when it comes to actually web development.
I think it always has been to an extent, because they just don't like obeying the open standard rules that are out there. They always come up with their own flavor of stuff, and it just makes it even more complicated on top of the platform they've already built. You know, Internet Explorer is a classic example of that. It never used to behave itself. And you know, back in the day, we'd have to write websites specifically for Internet Explorer. You'd even, you know, write specific code for it, which made it incredibly frustrating. People never liked it, and I wish they had just built development platforms that were a lot more standard. But yeah, I mean, as a developer, I find the whole PHP, MySQL, MariaDB, whatever you use in the environment, so much easier to use.
So just to ask you. So obviously you've got a development community with WordPress and with PHP, and you know, PHP in some coding circles is seen as a bit of an old dog, but the reality is it's a very flexible, powerful, with Laravel, libraries like Laravel, it's kind of rejuvenated itself. But then you've got the whole JavaScript wagon, you know, truck. How have you coped with that, and have you really invested a lot of time and energy in JavaScript? And
I think there's, as a new developer, you can fall down this hole of using library upon library upon library to achieve the most simple things. And what you know, I'll still use jQuery for stuff, because I like the fact that it handles a lot of cross-compatibility stuff for me. But, you know, even with theme development in WordPress, there are so many things that you can layer on top of a theme to actually get it to do what you want to do. And a simple little bit of code can override. It's a bit like plugins, right? So people will be, I want to do this on my site. At the end of the day, you end up with 30 plugins on there, probably doing 100 lines of code and functions PHP. And so I tend to want to go back to the basics a lot of the time and hand code that stuff and make it more efficient. You can make WordPress very scalable if you do it properly. And if you're not making it do crazy things in the background. I mean, we did some work on Bertha a week or two ago just to improve the performance of it. Fortunately, Bertha got very popular, a lot of people using it, and we needed to cut down on some server load. So we did a few tweaks to the code, and bang, we got it running more efficiently. No need for a server upgrade, you know.
Yeah.
So there's a lot you can do with code to make things run a lot faster.
So what's your position around React? Have you invested a lot of time and your team in React?
It's like when AMP came out, there was a load of hype around AMP, and people coming to me saying, can you make WS form output AMP? And I'm like, okay, I'll have a look at it. Took a look at it. I'm like, this is a waste of time. This is just Google trying to make me do something. Yeah. And it's flopped, you know. React developed by Facebook, I believe, but we've only really done React stuff with Gutenberg because we have to. So I can do the stuff that I output in React, I can do with native code in PHP and JavaScript. I don't really need React on top of it to do that. And I'm sure for some developers, it helps them out. They've learned that way of working. I'm just more of a hand code type of guy from my childhood coding days up until now. So maybe I'm old fashioned. I don't know. But
you're just an old hacker, aren't you? Really?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I think we're going to end it now. Mark, thank you so much. It's been a great interview. You have to come back and we'll have a second interview. And like I say, thank you for the support in the show. It's much appreciated. Absolutely. We will be back next week with another great guest. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.
See ya.
Thanks.